Welcome to OpenFrame, a podcast by Pixieset, the place for photographers and other creatives to have inspiring, honest, and uplifting conversations.
Hi, good morning, Amy.
Hi, Nadia. How are you?
I am good. I'm awake now. I've been awake for a few hours. How are you feeling today?
I'm okay. I'm in like a rest period at the moment, which is very much needed. But as I was saying before we started recording, as I give myself space, my brain starts going into all the things that I can do now that I have some room. And should I actually do those things, I think is the question. So I'm just going to fight it and continue to rest.
Good. You deserve it after the year you've had.
Yeah, it's been extreme.
It's been very extreme, and we're going to speak about this today. I'm really excited to dive into your journey and what you've learned the last 2 years. Can you give us a little introduction, Amy? Like, who are you? Where are you? What are you doing?
Yeah, I'm really bad at introductions, but I will do my best. So I'm Ami Robertson, and I am a photographer. I have 2 separate businesses in regards to photography, and one is weddings and family, and the other one is brand photography, which a few people might have heard of, which is The Woman and the Wolf. And I focus on that side of things. I focus really much on visibility for women, basically, or anyone who identifies as a woman, to help them give more confidence about being seen, to get their business out there. I think it's really important that we have more female leaders in the world. And usually the thing that's stopping them from showing up is confidence or not feeling good about themselves. So that's what The Woman and the Wolf is about. It's about everyone deserves to take up space and be seen. And I really enjoy that side of things, wedding side of things, and the family photography I also love, because I really love people and I love emotion. So they kind of contrast a little bit, because the wedding and family side is like really documentary, and obviously The Woman and the Wolf is portraiture. So while there is a relaxed approach, it's still more contrived, I think. It's probably the right word, because you have to kind of set the scene and get people in the right headspace, rather than just kind of capturing what's like unfolding in front of you. So yeah, they're 2 quite different areas of photography, but I really enjoy both, and I feel really lucky that I get to do both.
I didn't realize that Woman and the Wolf, that business, was specifically targeted to women. Now that makes sense, now that you say it, because I don't think I've seen like any men in those branding photos, or maybe like one.
I do have male clients, but they're generally of the same mindset. Like they're drawn to me for the same reasons that the women I work with are drawn to me, that they have feminist values, they're about equality, they're about confidence, and it's always interesting when men do book me, because even though like my website is filled with women, all kinds of different women, they never really see that it's just women. They just feel drawn to the portraiture and my values. So I'm really lucky that I do actually get to work with some really great men as well.
That's amazing. And you started out in photography with weddings, right? What did you do before being a wedding photographer?
I've had all the jobs.
All the jobs.
So I left school when I was 16, didn't pass any of my GCSEs, so I don't have any formal education. The only GCSE I passed was art. And I went on to be a lifeguard, which was a fun job for a 16-year-old, for Haven Holidays.
You have to save anyone?
I've saved a few people. So I'm actually now looking back on it. like the stuff I had to do as a 16-year-old, like CPR and stuff like that. Like, I just don't think that 16-year-olds should be like put in that position of responsibility. But yeah, I have had to administer aid when needed a few times. And I moved out of home as well, really young. And I moved to Cornwall because I was like, I'm going to be a professional surfer. Turns out I'm not that great at surfing. And then kind of moved on from there to doing ski seasons. And I spent like 8 years living in various countries in Europe. So France, Switzerland, Austria. It was a really fun lifestyle, but that's where I got into photography, and started taking pictures. I really liked taking pictures of snowboarders. I really liked taking pictures of landscape. So actually the foundation of my work is from enjoying landscape photography. Then when I came back when I was 25, I was like, I'm going to be a photographer, so I need to move to London. And moved to London, where I worked as an au pair, and then a nanny. And then because I had started photographing weddings like at that age, didn't have a clue what I was doing at all, and kind of had this weird 5-year window where I was working as a nanny. I also had a dog walking business. I was also taking photos, and not really taking it very seriously on the business side of things. Like, I was like the world's worst business person. Like, my pricing was all over the place, no like real consistency, and then I kind of had a year where I really honed in on everything and really kind of worked on my style, what I wanted to photograph, who I wanted to work with, and then I finally went full-time like 6 years ago. So I've been doing this for 12 years. So after that kind of 1 year of pretty decent work, it all got a bit too much to like juggling the dog walking business and the photography business, and basically the universe took it into its own hands, and my car for dog walking just completely destroyed itself.
Wow, self-destroying car.
Yeah, it just kind of stopped working one day, and it was the choice of, do I get another car so I can continue dog walking, or do I actually, make the leap now into photography, which is what I wanted to do. And yeah, it wasn't easy. There's been ups and there's been downs. Those periods of time where you don't know when you're going to pay your bills or when there's going to be any work that comes in. Definitely had a good couple, well, probably I'd say at least 3 years of that. And you wind up saying yes to work that you don't want because you just need money, basically. And then I left sorry, this is a really long like biography.
Don't apologize.
I left. I was in an abusive relationship for the best part of a decade as well while this was kind of going on, and I left that in 2018, and I was homeless. So I lived in a shed at my horse's stables for the best part of like 4 months before moving into a caravan, which to be honest wasn't that much better. And then massive mental breakdown in 2019. And then you kind of fast forward to early 2020, where I kind of had myself put back together again. 2020 was kind of where everything was going to start to grow and be able to get some security for myself. And then, of course, we hit March 2020 and everything gets taken away by the unforgiving pandemic world that we're now in. So yeah, it's been quite a journey to get to here. And to also say that my two most successful years in business have been during a pandemic is quite a weird concept.
Yeah, that is a weird concept, because for so many creatives or even non-creative businesses, it's been the opposite, right? Like, yeah, last 2 years have been horrific, and I'm so curious, like, to just know more of how you went from living with your horse in a shed to where you are today, which is you running a 6-figure photography business. by yourself.
Yes.
and that's so amazing, and I'm so in awe of you. And I'd love to get a bit more details for our listeners, like what happened last year. How did you pivot in 2020, when obviously, like, all of us, me included, were like, oh my gosh, 2020 is going to be amazing, it's going to be the year. And then everything stopped. What did you do? What happened for you in that last year?
So to just give a little bit of clarity, The Woman and the Wolf was set up in 2017. Like, it was an idea that was kind of born of the kind of female entrepreneur movement that was kind of happening, and realizing that there was actually a lot of small businesses out there that necessarily couldn't afford the more standard commercial photography, but, you know, brand photography kind of made its big debut, I think, into the world in kind of late 2017, 2018. So I set that up then, and it, you know, it ticked along really nicely for, you know, for that couple of years. Kind of get to March 2020 though, and that was definitely a very traumatic time, on top of 2 years of previous trauma as well. And I didn't handle it very well in the first couple of weeks at all. And I'd probably say there was at least a month of just, you know, I remember applying for a job at Tesco's and them telling me that I wasn't qualified enough. Because I didn't have any previous experience, and it was just, yeah, that space of like, well, what do I do now? Like, I'm not worth anything at this point of time.
Oh, that just really hit me. Oh my gosh. Like, how I've been there. I've been in that position where you think, I'm not worth anything. I can't do anything. What even can I do? What am I good at? Like, if not even a supermarket wants to hire me. And it's such a lie.
Oh, yeah, completely. It's not true. But I think the headspace was it was really dark. I definitely had, and especially because I spent most of it on my own, and I was also living in a house where I had 2 key workers, so their lives carried on as normal while mine came to a grinding halt. And it was like, well, what do I do? Like, and it was I look back on it now and it's a really obscure time. We also had a litter of kittens during the lockdown, so most of my day was spent taking photos of these kittens, and going for like really long walks. But it was really dark. I definitely had a window of, I went on to antidepressants during that time. The kind of key moment was when I was like walking around the woods one day wondering how long it would be before someone found me if I hung myself. And I kind of went home and I was just like, I think I need to call the doctor. So it's like when you're in that place and it's just you just can't see a way out. And I remember saying to my mum as well, like, I just don't have any more fight left in me. Like, I've been fighting for like ever since I left my ex. Like, I have been fighting to get my life back on track, and then I get to a point where my life is back on track, because you have to bear in mind, I came out of that relationship with no friends. Like, I had one friend and that was the lady who owned the stables where I kept my horse. You know, I had no social life, and I spent all this time rebuilding that and getting myself into a good position just to literally have it taken away overnight. And I was just like, I just can't do this. Like, I cannot do this again. And then of course you give yourself some time to process, and then you kind of realize that, you know, there is stuff you can do. You do have a choice, and it's up to you to choose what that is. And I'm a big believer in not falling into the kind of victim mentality. I think bad things do happen to people. I've had a lot of bad things happen to me, but I think you have a choice in how you react. And that choice might take time. Like, the pandemic didn't hit, and then, the next week I was like, oh, I'm going to do this. And, it all kind of worked out. There was like weeks between that time. But I just made a choice. Oh, sorry.
I'm like in school.
Sorry.
I didn't just want to interrupt you, but I would love to know, I think it would be really helpful to know that awareness that you have a choice and you didn't want to be a victim. Did you just have that resilience and that awareness just inside of you? Did you work through that time with someone's help? How did you get to that point of being like, of picking yourself up and be like, no, I can do something?
A combination of things. I often say that trauma is, in a bizarre way, a bit of a superpower, because the more stuff you have to pick yourself up from, the much better you get at kind of surviving. And it's not healthy, which we'll talk about in a bit, but it gives you the tools to be able to react to certain situations. I remember with the pandemic, it was like, for people who have anxiety, like myself and a lot of my friends, like this was the situation we've been planning for ages. Because you kind of go through those like worst case scenarios. And I remember talking to some people who hadn't really had anything massively traumatic happen to them in their lives, and in their head they always thought that they would be like me, that they'd pick themselves up, they'd dust themselves off, and they'd get through it. But the pandemic was their first rodeo, and the first time round is, I think, the worst. So there's the being prepared for it, I think, and having experienced life-changing things like that in the past. But also therapy. I think therapy is, I'm still in therapy now, and like it's an absolute key to having someone who questions your views and helps you to maybe navigate things in a different way, or to have a different viewpoint. I also think speaking to other people in a deep and meaningful way, and knowing like these conversations, like, is being a slightly more serious person than a fun person, and which I don't do small talk. Like, if I meet someone, I'm really interested in their story and how they got to somewhere, and I want to know about them, and not on the surface level. And I think when you hear other people's experiences, as well as the work that you do on yourself, like, pandemics are awful and life-changing things are awful, but I think you can get to a stage relatively quickly where you can make a choice to get through it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, the whole story and how you felt and what you went through. It's a lot. That's quite a lot, so thank you for sharing that with us. So you came to the stage where you said to yourself, I do have choices and I can do something. And what happened then? So
2 things happened. One, I decided that I needed to make some money. And that survival came from making money. Obviously by that point we'd had some help from the government, and I was very fortunate that I had some help from the government. But I still needed to make money, and I still needed to secure my future going out of this. So I did what everyone tells you not to do, and I did a massive sale. So I did a lockdown sale on brand shoots where if you paid for your brand shoot in full at the time, then you'd get 40% off. And I sold 25 of those, knowing full well you obviously had to do the work like afterwards, but it gave me an injection of income that was going to allow me to survive. The other things I did is I decided to, instead of making it to take myself outside of myself and to use my knowledge and previous experiences to help other people. So I was really visible online, and I did like loads of kind of like lives to give people tools, like, and it was all kind of free content, to give people tools on what they could be doing within their business to help themselves. You know, I was really open about how I was feeling about things. I just stayed really visible. And I think like you actually talked about this on your stories the other day, being visible and sharing helped me feel that connection and to give me that sense of self-worth again, that if I was helping other people, then, you know, I had purpose and I had worth. Obviously that's not how it should work, but it was connection, and the idea that maybe my experience and my knowledge had helped someone else in their situation just immediately made me feel a lot better.
Absolutely. And I did get, in response to these stories that I made, I did get so many DMs of people saying, it's so interesting how we diminish that, like what the connection we find online, how we like make fun of it, or what, you know, like it shouldn't give you validation. You shouldn't seek your worth there. And that's all true. That it's not sustainable, of course, if you look for your worth, your validation and everything online. That is all true, but we diminish still the importance of those times, like for example last year when, you know, people like us, for example, we live alone or whatever, like when you, the times when you need connection and there's just nobody around, and you find your people, you find your friends online, literally, and I think that is beautiful. And I love that you just mentioned that you stayed visible and you shared with people how you were feeling, and you also shared your knowledge. And I was wondering, while you said that, if you felt, because of the position you were in your life, if you felt a little bit like an imposter, like what am I talking about, like with like where I am. But equally, like I asked myself that question, and then I thought, we all have something valuable to give, no matter what we've been through and no matter of like our circumstances. We still, that doesn't take away the experience and knowledge that you've had.
Yeah, completely. I am a big believer in sharing knowledge, and doing that brought in opportunity. You know, if I hadn't have done those things, I wouldn't have wound up on the panel for Women Who Photo and Film with the photography show. I wouldn't have had the opportunity to do masterclasses for 9 Dots. I also wouldn't have started mentoring, because during that lockdown, people started asking for me to do kind of group, you know, workshops online, and I started teaching. And, you know, initially I didn't charge. We did like charity donation because of that imposter syndrome, where I was like, oh God, who am I to be doing this? And then when I could see that the information I was giving people was valuable to them and was helping them to make changes and to diversify their business, it then allowed me to structure my course, which I've run twice now and has generated about £50,000 worth of income. So, you know, it was just these actions that feel quite natural, but kind of, you know, also I'm a big believer when you've got your back up against the wall and you've got absolutely nothing to lose at that point, you do more extreme stuff. It's I think it's Tim Ferriss who says, like, I remember listening to a podcast with him ages ago where he was like, okay, what's your 5-year plan? And then how could you achieve that in 6 months if someone had a gun to your head?
Okay.
So it's quite an extreme way, but I just think when everything's stripped back and taken away, that's actually a really from a business perspective, a good place to be in, because the only way is up from that point. So yeah, there was that. And then I also, in terms of the wedding side of things, I really geared my marketing towards small weddings. When it started to become apparent that they were going to kind of start up again. I remember when I SEO'd my website for micro wedding, and everyone was like, that term isn't gonna like stick. And now like I'm #1 for micro wedding photographer, and I get a lot of inquiries for smaller weddings. I also decided to not waste my summer. I decided that I didn't want 2020 to be the year of the pandemic. So I decided that I was going to do something that I had always wanted to do, and that was to go for a really long walk. And I decided to walk the Southwest Coast Path over the end of July and August. It was quite a tight 6-week time frame. But I did it all 630 miles and 35,000 meters. And we raised nearly £6,000 for Women's Trust, which is a charity I really believe in, because they do the kind of free therapy for women after they've come out of abusive relationships, which I think is like the key to people staying out of those relationships again, or not winding up in another one. So I just found ways to give myself purpose again. And those actions really started to blow up my career. And I obviously decided when I came back from the walk that I was going to move back into London, because that was the kind of most sensible place for me to be. And yeah, it's just kind of spiraled constantly since then. Which sounds like a big kind of hero story, and it is, but I think like the key to the conversation that we wanted to talk about today is what cost.
At what cost? Yeah,
because there is a cost.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been talking about this in therapy actually this week, about how I work and what I do to myself in order to achieve my goals is a form of self-harm. And that's been the process that I've been working through over the last couple of months, because I have been in burnout. It has been too much. You know, I did 6 figures between April and September this year. But I wouldn't say that that's worth it. Not with my current business model or how it's been. I have an editor and he's amazing. Definitely would have died if it wasn't for him. He saved me this year. But the cost of that is huge. Like, it's your health.
Was that something you said before when a few years ago when you started Woman and the Wolf and were doing weddings and everything, you didn't really have a structure. You weren't a business person, which right, like now you very much seem like one. And I've seen like the schedules you post and like, you know, your income goals and what everything, income, outcome, expensive, because you share that as well online. So you're very much organized and structured. Did you plan on that? Did you plan on making 6 figures? Did you plan on doing, I don't know, how much was it? 600 shoots or 800 shoots in a few months? Did you plan on that? Was that a goal, or did it just happen and like, it just took you by surprise and you just ran with it?
So I had goals for this year. I do set goals. I'm a big believer in goal setting. And now I'm a big believer in goal setting because I think that's your boundaries as well. And that's something I want to be talking about more, because going into 2022 and how I have that mapped out, that's my boundaries. And I think that's just as important. But yeah, I'm a big believer in goal setting. Just because it does give you that structure, and it gives you, you know, I've only been doing it for the last 2 to 3 years, but it also kind of gives you a security. You know, if you know what you want and you know what you need to do to get it, then, you know, you're going to do the work. But it has spiraled this year, and I found myself saying yes to so much. And that's come from a place of fear of everything being taken away again. You know, that I need to do this now because everything could could be gone again, like within the space of a week, and I need to make sure that I've got this much money in the bank at all times, like, and it does come from a place of fear as opposed to love and enjoyment. And like definitely this week with the new variant and all the scaremongering, I've started to get into that survival anxiety again. What am I going to have to do if this happens? Like, what's going to happen if this gets cancelled? Like, and that's how I've been operating for, you know, the last 2 years. And it's the positive of it is it's got me a huge amount of success, something that I will be forever grateful for. And I get that, you know, to get to this level, you do have to work hard, but you also have to get to a point, especially when you start to get into burnout, where you have to make a decision again, because you have put you put trauma and stress on yourself.
Yeah.
And it goes back to my original point of you always have a choice. So yeah, my operating system this year has been from a place of fear, and survival, and yeah, it can be seen as good, but it can also be seen as really bad.
Yeah, the outcome, obviously, there's two outcomes, like as you said. One is you've been hugely successful, and you've reached the 6 figures, which to some people is like you know, a goal, and it's something desirable. And the other outcome is that your mental health, physical health, like your whole balance is thrown off, right? And what we call burnout. What do you want to change, like moving forward for next year? I know we've been talking about this a little bit, because it seems like the solution to, not the solution, but avoiding burnout is by saying no, the word no. But what are some kind of boundaries and structures that you've set in place for next year?
So for next year, the plan is to not go over 28 weddings. So I'm currently at 24, so I'm only going to take another 4. And to be clear, like, I've done my numbers. I think this is the key thing, knowing your numbers and knowing your business. So, you know, I sat down and I about a month ago now, and because I obviously had to become VAT registered this year, which was really stressful, but now it's done. It's not so bad, and it's very easy to manage. But I do have to earn a certain amount in order for that to be viable, and to go back under the VAT limit, you have to be in a financially secure position, because you have to cut your earnings, you have to cut your workload by a lot. So like next year is about staying comfortably over that VAT threshold. So my money goal for next year is 126,000, which is less than what I've earned this year, but it's enough. That's what I need. So I look at my outgoings. I know what I need to earn every month. I know what I want to earn every month, which I think is the key thing, because obviously you need to earn what you need to earn, but what about all the things that you want to do? That's the whole point in working hard. So the money goal is really clear. And then I basically work that out backwards. You know, how many weddings is that? At what price? How many brand shoots is that? At what price? And it basically equates to 28 weddings, and running my course again later next year, the mini sessions, and then 7 brand shoots a month, which sounds like a lot of work, but it's almost just over half of what I've done this year.
Wow.
And I've done double that. What I plan to do next year, I've done double that in 6 months. So since April, I've done like 200 brand shoots, and I've done nearly 55 weddings. So which is just insanity.
Since April, what is that, like 6 months? Yeah.
Well, 8 months. So yeah, this is why I'm not feeling so great. But getting clear about that. But obviously this year's been different. We couldn't work for the first 4 months of this year. Everything was compacted. We were dealing with the postponements from 2020. So like part of it has been because of what happened. There's no control over that. But where I've been processing trauma and I've been almost treating myself like a robot because I have this thing to prove that this is my worth. And if I'm not doing this, then, you know, who am I? It's just been too extreme. And next year, I really want to give myself some space. I want to feel like I'm creative again. I don't feel like I'm creative at the moment. I feel like I'm still good at what I do. My clients still love what I'm doing, but it's on autopilot. Like I'm leaning on everything that I'm comfortable with because I don't have capacity to do anything else. And, you know, my marketing has been neglected. You know, there's only so long you can go for without marketing before things start to crumble. So working at this level is going to damage both me and my business in the long term. So making a change now is key. So yeah, I'm taking all of January off and then kind of diving back in February. But my constant thing in my head is no one's going to book you. Like the bookings are going to run out. This is your peak. It's all downhill from here. Like unless you say yes to everything, it's all just going to go away. So it's been grappling with that mindset as well. But I'm almost fully booked for what I want for February. And inquiries haven't stopped. I just say no to a lot more now.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's so fascinating, the shadow sides of what people see. And obviously you've been like really honest with sharing about that online as well. I do recommend everyone follow Amy because there's not many people in our field who talk so openly about money, about failure and the struggles like of business life and of success, of the thing that the shiny thing that everyone sees and wants. But not many people are so honest like you, which is something I'm so grateful for and I admire you for. So thank you for sharing that.
I try. I think it's just important. Like it's like what you said, it's the shadow side of things. People turn social media into this highlight reel and it's just not life. That's not the reality of life. And one of the things I've hated the most over the last 2 years has been the toxic positivity that you see, especially in the early days of the pandemic, when people were still processing this huge thing that had happened. And everyone's like, pivot, diversify. And if you just change your mindset and you do this, and it's like, no, mental health first, your well-being first. And I'm definitely not perfect in that based on how brutal I have been to myself this year. But like we're human beings and that means we're multi-layered and things just aren't perfect ever.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. Things are never perfect. And everything that's amazing and beautiful and desirable, and it's amazing what you've built, everything like that has a shadow side, and everything in life is like that. Pretty much I can't think of anything that's just good or just bad. Like everything has two sides, and it's so important we talk about this. You mentioned you have a course for branding photographers, right?
Yeah.
Of course there's, but how do you communicate, like doing what you've done, but in a gentle way without harming yourself? How do you think that works?
I would say that my course is quite intense. I'm quite an intense person and I'm also quite a practical person. But I do kind of reiterate that, you know, what I'm compacting into 6 weeks is for 4 or 5 years worth of work. that it just doesn't happen overnight. Like, you're not going to do this course and all of a sudden you're going to be a successful brand photographer. You're going to do this course and you're going to take those tools, make them your own, and start implementing them over a period of time that could be anything from 6 months, depending on the person, to 2 years. I think I make a real point of saying that everyone's journey is their own, and comparison really is the worst possible thing you can do to yourself. People would say, people who only just came across me in the last couple of years would probably think I'm an overnight success, but there was 10 years worth of work behind that. Yes. And that's just a key thing to remind people. And so I think how I approach my courses, I'm very, very open as well. While it's intense, like, the Q&As are a free for all, like, people can ask whatever they want. We also have like the Facebook community, which is also a space where people can ask everything they need to. This is also probably one of the reasons why I've grappled with the idea of making it like more passive, so just having it online for people to buy, because I think when you're learning a new skill and when you are perhaps being overloaded with information, if you don't feel like you've got support or actual connection during that process, it's not actually worth anything. And so I'm people have said about making it passive, but I don't think I will do yet, or definitely not in the form that it is at the moment, because you do need to be present for that.
Yeah, I agree. The last 2 years, what lessons are you taking from the last 2 years, from the hustle?
I've definitely been having an existential crisis the last couple of weeks.
Good. Yeah. We've all been there.
Burnout has pushed me into some very weird headspaces about, what am I doing? Like, this isn't living. This is not life. Like, I thought, I was thinking about this before we talked, and actually the time that I was happiest in the last kind of 2 to 3 years was that time when I lived in a shed with my horse.
Okay, that's interesting.
And because I had, while my life was small, I had, this like my friend who almost became like family, and companionship, and had the horse there, and like everything was simple. And as you kind of grow and you build a business, and obviously I've taken on another business this year as well, as you start to build, things become much more complicated, and visibility is hard as well. And I'm just craving simplicity at the moment, because it just sometimes just feels too overwhelming. So I'm very much exploring who I am when I'm not working, because I've kind of forgotten who that person is, or who I am on my next stage of my evolution, because I'm also still processing abuse, and my world is new at the moment. It's not the world that I had kind of 4 years ago. So more time with my horse is definitely needed. Probably leaving London in the next 6 to 9 months, I reckon, and more space. I think we all need space, whether that's travel or just having a day at home. I'm still don't know what the full answer is, because I think part of our experience as human beings is to be unsatisfied and frustrated, no matter what level you get to. I know me 5 years ago, would have been desperate for what me now has. Yeah. And now I want something different because I'm always evolving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know if any of that made sense.
It makes so much sense, Amy, so much sense. Because, you know, whenever you hear like interviews with people who've reached something and who've done something and who've achieved stuff, they rarely speak about this, that we're constantly changing, and what you wanted 3 years ago, 10 years ago is not what you want at the moment you get it. Like as soon as you achieve something, there's a saying as well in German, I'm paraphrasing now, but it's like, as soon as a wish is born, it already births the next one. Like it's kind of, you never stop, like, and then you have it and you realize you desire something else, and you're never there. You're never ever done. And it's so beautiful. I appreciate your honesty and just being completely open about where you've been, where you are right now, where you're headed. It's such a beautiful thing, hearing from a human in evolution. Like, thank you.
I think, I just, as like a thought that came into my head, especially about how I feel like the happiest time I was when I was homeless. It was because I had love and connection, and I feel like that is lacking massively at the moment because of the box I've put myself into. And that's definitely what I want to change kind of going forward.
Amazing. I'm looking forward to seeing those changes in the next few months or years. Looking forward to like witness you doing amazing things, and I'm so glad to like know you, to be your friend, and see where you're headed.
I feel exactly the same about you. I'm so happy, and this is the thing, like people say, I suppose this is the other thing, like with the pandemic, it's this horrific thing, but I wouldn't have connected with you without the pandemic. I wouldn't have connected with Laura Babb without the pandemic, which led me on to something I'm really excited about, as well as gaining an amazing friend. Like it's going back to the good and bad thing. Like bad things happen, but really incredible things can come out of those bad things, because we're kind of continually evolving. So yeah, I think there's a lot to be grateful for, and while you can be grateful for it all, you also have a choice, and I think choice is always the key thing with everything.
Amen. That's a good way to end this conversation. Thank you so much, Amy. I appreciate you. Everyone go follow Amy. It's so worth it. You will not regret connecting with Amy. She's amazing. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.